All right, so in this one, we are going to update the item quantity for each line that we have inside of our cart. It's fairly straightforward to do, and it's just like what we did in product detail, where we had this form that actually updated everything for us. Right? So we have the quantity value, we had the actual item ID, all that stuff. So we're going to do the same thing. So going back into our form, or our cart view, we're going to create a new form. And I'm going to just put it into the table row. So I'll call it form, and I'll set action being to the same page that we're on. So using that dot does that. And then method equals to get. And then we're going to close off that form inside of the row. And then we really just need to convert the line item total into being a input. So input type equals to number. And name equals to QTY, just like what we've done before. And then value is equal to the current value, whatever that is. And we actually put this on the wrong one. This should be up one. So I'm going to copy that and paste it here and put this to item quantity. Remove this. Item total is something we haven't done yet, which we still will. So we've got the quantity here. So if we save it and take a look back in here, we see that we now have this quantity. And of course, since we have the quantity here, we also have to make sure that our item ID is coming through as well. And that's going to be the product ID, of course. So this time it's going to be a type of hidden. And the name is going to be item. And then it's going to be item.item.id because we're getting the actual product ID. So if we look back into our cart view, what we're getting is the item ID itself, which is related to the variation. So we go back in here. And then lastly, we want to have a submit button, and I'm going to put that right next to the X button. And all I'll do here is input type equals to submit, class, btn and btn link, and then finally value update item. Close that off, and we refresh in here, and now we have the number. So if we change that number and hit update item, it actually updates it and changes it inside of the cart. So this is kind of the long way of doing it. I'm actually going to move this update item next to the quantity instead. So it's right there. So what I want to do now is actually only show this update item if this number changes. So if it changes at any time, then we'll actually show this button of update item. To do this, we'll add a couple new classes. The first class is going to be based off of the quantity itself. So I'll add class equals to item QTY. And then the next class would be adding to the update item button, and I'll just say btn-update. So since we have these, we have btn update as one of the class and item quantity as the next one. We need to add in some jQuery to do this, but before I do that, I'm going to add a style tag. I'm just going to do inline for now to test it out, and we'll do style equals to display none, because we actually want it hidden. So if we go back into our update, it's not actually even showing up at all. So now we want to check whether or not the item quantity changes. Now if you remember back to product detail, we had this jQuery item here that tested whether or not a variation changed, and then we ran a function. So our cart is going to be very similar. First off, I'll put some script tags in here for the auto completion, or at least the also the checking of jQuery. So we'll do block jQuery here and in block. And the first one, we need to use a selector to get the item quantity from the input. So we're going to say $ parentheses and dot item dash QTY, and then we'll do dot change, and we'll run a function here. So inside of this function, we'll say this, and I'll explain what this is in just a second, dot next, and then we get the next thing that we need, which is dot btn dash update, and then we'll do fade in and use semicolons at the end. So this is taking the instance that's actually changing, or the item, whatever that item is actually the one that's being changed. So in our for loop, we might have 10 of these item quantities, and the first one that changes, or any of them that change, this is actually going to reflect, or excuse me, this is actually going to reflect which one's being changed, and then it's going to grab the next available BTN update, which is the one literally right next to it, and then it's going to fade that in because we have it faded out. All right, so now if we go back in here and refresh, if we change any of these item quantities, we can actually see that now we can update the items. And if we go negative, it will remove it as well, which is pretty nice. So the update item, this part is cool, but we probably want to have it a little bit more dynamic than this, meaning not having them actually have to click update item, but have it update automatically. But before we actually do that, I want to now calculate the line total for each line and actually show that up in the item total itself. So let's go and take a look at our view and see kind of how we're going to do that so we can actually do it in the next one. And the main part here is when we actually save or update the cart, which is what's happening here, or the cart item, we should actually update the line total as well. And that's fairly straightforward, so that's what we'll do. If you have any questions on this, let us know. Otherwise, let's keep going.